Let me tell you something nobody ever told you about attraction. The moment you stop caring is the moment they start chasing. And I don't mean pretending not to care. I mean genuinely reaching that place where your peace means more than their attention. That's when the whole game changes. Because the truth is, the reason they're not choosing you right now isn't because you're not enough. It's because they can feel that you've made them your entire focus. You've made them your measure of worth, and the second someone senses that, they lose curiosity. But here's what's crazy: when you pull back, when you stop trying to prove your value, when you finally say, "I'm not going to chase something that's running from me," their energy flips. Suddenly, the same person who seemed distant starts leaning in. They start wondering what happened, what changed, what they lost. This video isn't about playing games, it's about reclaiming power. Because when you stop begging for attention, when you stop explaining your worth, when you stop caring about whether or not they choose you, that's when you become the one who gets chosen. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why the power of not caring isn't about indifference. It's about self-respect. And once you master it, the same people who overlooked you will start wondering how they ever thought they could. So don't scroll, don't click away, because what you're about to hear will change the way you think about love forever. You know what's interesting? Most people think that the more they care, the more they'll be loved. That if they show up constantly, check in often, and make sure the other person knows how invested they are, it'll somehow make that person feel safe and secure enough to choose them. But the truth is the exact opposite. The more you care too soon or too intensely, the more attraction you quietly destroy. See, attraction doesn't grow in a space that feels certain. It grows in the unknown. It grows in curiosity. It grows when someone feels that spark of wonder. Who is this person? What are they thinking? What makes them tick? But when you care too much too quickly, you remove that wonder. You remove the tension. You give them all your energy before they've earned it. And it's not about playing games, let's be clear about that. It's about emotional balance. When you care excessively, you're not giving love, you're giving anxiety. You're trying to control the outcome by doing more, saying more, giving more, hoping that effort will make someone stay. But attraction doesn't respond to effort. It responds to energy. Think about it. When someone gives you too much, too soon, when they're always available, always agreeing, always reaching out, you don't feel closer to them. You start to feel pressure. You feel like you can't breathe. You start to wonder why they're so eager, what they're trying to prove, and whether they even know who you are, or if they've just decided you're their emotional project. This is what happens when you care too much. You flood the connection with expectation. You're not being yourself anymore. You're being the version of you that's trying to impress, trying to please, trying to earn approval. You trade authenticity for validation, and that's when people start to pull away. Because human beings are wired to value what feels earned. We chase what we can't quite have. We're drawn to what makes us feel slightly uncertain, slightly challenged. Not because we love drama, but because our brains crave discovery. When something feels completely predictable, our curiosity dies. And when you care too much, you become predictable. The other person knows you'll always answer. They know you'll always say yes. They know you'll rearrange your schedule for them, justify their inconsistency, and forgive things that should never have been acceptable. And once that happens, they stop feeling the need to show up. They stop feeling the desire to earn your time. But when you're balanced, when you show care from a grounded place, the energy shifts completely. You're no longer giving from fear. You're giving from fullness. You're not chasing. You're connecting. That's the difference between love and attachment. Attachment says, I need you to make me feel okay. Love says, I feel okay, and I'd love to share that with you. And now, let's take it deeper. Caring too much isn't just about behavior. It's about self-worth. When you care too much, what you're really saying is, I don't trust that I'm enough on my own. So you overcompensate. You use your energy, your effort, your availability to prove your value. But that energy doesn't convince anyone. It actually communicates the opposite. It tells the other person that you're trying to earn something you already should have just by being yourself. And people pick up on that subconsciously. They sense when your actions are coming from fear instead of confidence. It's why you can do the exact same thing, send a text, show affection, plan something nice, and it lands completely differently depending on where it's coming from. If it's coming from confidence, it feels attractive. If it's coming from insecurity, it feels heavy. The irony is, the more you try to be perfect for someone, the less real you become, and attraction needs realness. It needs friction. It needs the imperfections that make you human. When you stop overcaring, you allow space for authenticity to breathe. You give the other person a chance to miss you, to wonder about you, to see that you're not anxiously waiting for their attention, you're living your life. When you reach that place, when you no longer need constant reassurance, you become magnetic. People feel safer with you because your energy isn't desperate. You're not demanding anything from them, you're just being. That kind of energy can't be faked. It comes from knowing your worth doesn't increase or decrease based on how someone else feels about you. And that's where the real power is. When you care less about convincing someone to like you, you open up the space for genuine connection. You stop performing and start relating. You stop chasing attention and start inspiring it. So, the next time you feel that pull to text again, to double down, to prove your loyalty, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it feels good to express myself or because I'm afraid of losing something? If it's the second one, step back. Let silence do some of the talking. Let space remind them of your value, because caring isn't the problem. Over-caring is. And when you learn to care without losing yourself, you become the kind of person no one wants to lose. When you finally stop trying to control the outcome, something incredible happens. People start moving toward you. That's the paradox of attraction. The moment you release your grip, the moment you let go of needing someone to respond, call, or validate you, that's when the energy between you shifts. Detachment is magnetic because it signals strength. It shows that you're centered in yourself, that your world doesn't fall apart depending on how someone else feels about you. Most people confuse detachment with indifference, but they're not the same thing. Indifference says, I don't care about you. Detachment says, I care, but I'm not controlled by the outcome. It's a subtle but powerful difference. Detachment comes from security, while indifference comes from fear. When you're detached, you're not cold, you're calm. You're not shutting people out. You're simply not losing yourself to pull them closer. And here's the beauty of it. That calmness is intoxicating. It's rare. Most people move through relationships with a constant hum of anxiety, the need to know, the need to be chosen, the need to be seen. So when you meet someone who isn't anxiously waiting for validation, who isn't trying to prove their worth, you can't help but be drawn in. You sense that they have something you want, peace. Detachment creates that peace. It's the space where love and attraction can actually breathe. Because when you're detached, you're no longer acting out of fear. You stop performing, you stop pretending, and you start expressing. You're not trying to be liked, you're being real. And realness in a world full of pretending is incredibly rare. Think of it like this. When you hold water too tightly, it slips through your fingers. But when you relax your hand, the water stays. The same is true for people. When you cling to someone, they feel the pressure of your expectations. When you let them breathe, they start to flow toward you naturally. That's what detachment does. It removes pressure and replaces it with presence. And presence is what truly connects people. When you're detached, you're not in your head worrying about what they think. You're actually there, in the moment, enjoying the interaction for what it is, not what you hope it becomes. You listen differently, you speak differently, you don't chase, you invite. That's why detached people come across as confident, not because they say more, but because they need less. The truth is, people are drawn to those who seem emotionally self-sufficient, not because they're hard to get, but because they're hard to shake. There's a quiet power in someone who can say, I like you, but I'll be okay if you're not the one. That sentence alone communicates more confidence than any amount of effort ever could. And it's not about pretending not to care. Faking detachment is just another form of caring too much. Real detachment isn't performance, it's perspective. It's the understanding that whatever is meant for you will never need to be forced. When you live from that place, you move differently. You don't rush, you don't chase, you don't panic. You trust the process because you trust yourself. Philosophically, detachment is freedom. It's the ability to love without losing your peace. It's realizing that connection should enhance your life, not consume it. When you reach that mindset, you stop attracting chaos and start attracting calm. You stop looking for people to complete you and start looking for people who complement you. And that's when attraction becomes effortless. Because people can feel the difference between someone who's full and someone who's empty. When you're full, when you already have purpose, passion, and peace, your energy says, I'm whole. And wholeness is irresistibly attractive. It doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it doesn't negotiate its value. It simply exists in its own power, and people feel that. Detachment also protects your energy. It stops you from overinvesting in situations that don't deserve you. When you're detached, rejection doesn't destroy you, it redirects you. You don't fall apart when someone doesn't reciprocate, because you've built your peace on something internal, not external. That's why detached people seem unbothered, not because they don't feel things, but because they've learned that emotions don't have to dictate their worth. And here's something to really think about. Detachment isn't the death of desire. It's what makes desire sustainable. When you're detached, your desire becomes pure, not desperate, not demanding, but open. You can want someone deeply and still know that you'll be fine if it doesn't work out. That's emotional maturity. That's attraction at its highest level when love becomes a choice, not a dependency. The people who master detachment aren't running from emotion. They're mastering it. They know how to hold space for someone without holding on too tightly. They know how to love with both hands open, one that gives freely and one that lets go gracefully. And when you love like that, You're free. You can give without fear. You can connect without losing yourself. And you can walk away without resentment. So, if you want to be magnetic, stop trying to be impressive. Be still. Be grounded. Be so secure in who you are that you don't need to chase anyone's approval. The right people will feel that. They'll feel your calm, your confidence, your peace, and they'll be drawn to it instinctively. Because detachment isn't about having less emotion, it's about having more control over it. It's not about shutting down your heart, it's about strengthening your center. And when your peace becomes more important than your fear of losing someone, you'll finally realize the moment you let go is the moment they start to hold on. Fear is one of the most subtle but destructive forces in love. It disguises itself as care, as effort, as passion. You think you're fighting for the connection, but what you're really fighting is your own insecurity. Fear is the quiet voice that says, if I don't try harder, they'll leave. It's the panic that makes you overthink every word, every silence, every pause. And the more you listen to that voice, the more you suffocate the very connection you're trying to save. Because fear doesn't create closeness, it creates pressure. It makes love conditional. When fear runs the show, every action becomes a strategy, not an expression. You text because you want reassurance. You compliment because you want attention. You agree because you don't want to lose them. And before you know it, you've built a relationship not on authenticity, but on anxiety. That's the cruel paradox. The more you act out of fear, the less loved you feel. Because deep down, you know that the version of you that's being accepted isn't the real one. It's the one performing to stay safe. And that realization eats away at your confidence. It makes you feel unseen, misunderstood, and unloved, even when someone's right there in front of you. Fear tells you that love is something fragile, that it has to be protected, managed, controlled. But real love doesn't live in fear. It lives in freedom. It thrives when both people feel safe to be themselves, messy, imperfect, unpredictable. Love can't grow where fear is constantly whispering that you're not enough, or that the other person might disappear at any moment. When you let fear dictate your behavior, you start living in reaction instead of creation. Every move you make becomes about avoiding loss instead of building connection. You're no longer present, you're predicting, you're not connecting, you're calculating. You start reading into things that don't need decoding. A slow reply becomes a rejection. A little distance becomes abandonment. You begin to interpret everything through the lens of what if I'm not wanted. And ironically, that energy, that emotional tension pushes the other person away. People can feel fear, even when you don't say it out loud. They sense it in your tone, your timing, your responses. Fear makes your energy heavy. It turns lightness into pressure. When you're fearful, you stop listening and start defending. You stop being curious and start clinging. The whole dynamic shifts from flow to force. But when you understand this, when you start to recognize that fear is just a story your mind tells you to protect you, you can begin to loosen its grip. You realize that fear isn't the enemy, it's a messenger. It's pointing to a place inside you that still believes love has to be earned or kept through performance. And this is where the real work begins, learning to sit with that fear without acting from it. Learning to breathe through the discomfort of uncertainty instead of trying to fix it. Because love is built in moments of uncertainty, that's where trust grows. That's where connection deepens, when you choose not to let fear dictate your moves. The moment you stop letting fear control your actions, everything changes. You start showing up differently. You're more grounded. You speak your truth without needing to be right. You listen without needing to defend. You express your needs without making them demands. You stop chasing love and start inviting it. And that energy is magnetic not because it's loud, but because it's calm. People are drawn to calmness. They're drawn to someone who doesn't panic when things feel uncertain, because that person feels safe, and safety is the most attractive energy in the world. When you're no longer ruled by fear, you make others feel at peace around you because your presence tells them, I'm not here to control you, I'm here to connect with you. And here's the truth, fear will always exist. It doesn't disappear with confidence, it dissolves through awareness. The more you understand it, the less power it has over you. You'll still feel fear, but it won't lead your decisions anymore. You'll start noticing when it shows up in that moment you want to double, text, in that urge to over-explain, in that panic when someone pulls away, and instead of reacting, you'll pause. You'll remind yourself that love doesn't need to be chased. When you act from fear, you try to hold someone tighter. When you act from love, you hold space. And that space, that breathing room, is what allows the right people to move closer. Because no one wants to feel trapped. They want to feel chosen freely again and again. Fear makes you believe that if you let go, you'll lose everything. But the irony is,